What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we have an interesting situation brewing with legendary 8 Division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer who currently holds the WBA Welterweight World Championship title, Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, as the WBA has now informed Manny Pacquiao if he pressed forward to fight Conor McGregor, UFC legend and superstar, in July. It looks like the date is July set for Manny Pacquiao, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, obviously, he has a date. He has a fight coming up January 23rd. And he stated that the WBA has now informed Manny Pacquiao that if he pressed forward, that will be a full 2 years since the last time he fought. And he has not defended it against anybody in their top 10 rankings, that they will strip him upon announcing the fight with Conor McGregor. With that said, they're not going to strip him and leave the belt vacant. They are going to strip him and elevate currently the WBA regular champion, Cuban superstar boxer, Yordenis Ugas. They're going to elevate Yordenis Ugas. Thus, we could possibly see the WBA wants to stage a unification bout. They are in cahoots with the WBC and the IBF. And who holds those belts? Undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Errol Spence Jr. So now they're stating that they will indeed allow a unification bout between Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas. And according to reports, that they are on board with this. So Errol Spence is reportedly on board with this. This is not what he's looking for. He wants to face Manny Pacquiao in unification bout. But if he's able to pick up that third belt fighting Yordenis Ugas, he's on board with it. Yordenis Ugas took to social media and said that he would love this opportunity to be elevated to the super champion, or as they put it, the WBA, they would dissolve the super champion belt, meaning that it won't exist anymore. It would just be Yordenis Ugas will be the sole WBA welterweight champion, period. There won't be any interims, silvers, or supers, or diamonds. There would just be Yordenis Ugas. And this is an opportunity for Errol Spence to have another big fight and to pick up another world title. With that said, Errol Spence is definitely looking for the biggest fights possible. He wants to fight Manny Pacquiao. Now, according to reports, Manny Pacquiao has stated that he wants to fight Errol Spence as well. He just wants to get his feet wet, and he wants to experience facing off against a UFC star. So he doesn't want to have an ordinary tune-up fight. But he's stating that he's been out the ring for 2 years now. So he last fought Keith Thurman. He defeated Keith Thurman. At the time, Keith Thurman was unified, undefeated WBC, WBA champion. And the reason I say that is because he never lost the WBC title in the ring. He lost it due to inactivity. And so he was stripped of the WBC title, which we know Danny Garcia and Sean Porter fought for the vacant WBC title, and Sean Porter beat him. So with that said, at the time going into the fight with Manny Pacquiao, he was a one belt holder, but he was quote unquote still title unified. And so Manny Pacquiao beat him for the WBA belt, but that was in 2019. Okay, that was July of 2019. So now we're going into July 2021, and he still hasn't defended anybody in the top 10 rankings. Most people felt like he would face off against 4 division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia, who is number 4 in the WBA rankings, and that would satisfy the WBA's rules as to having to defend it against somebody at least in their top 15, top 10 rankings. So this makes all the sense in the world that he would have fought Mikey Garcia, and it satisfies that. But Manny Pacquiao is saying that he wants a tune-up, and his tune-up, what better way to do it, getting big, massive money in a crossover fight with UFC superstar legend Conor McGregor. Obviously, Conor McGregor doesn't have a lot of boxing experience. He did box in a boxing match, obviously, against Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather stopped him. Floyd Mayweather carried him in the fight. Now, we know Manny Pacquiao has a different mindset. So Manny Pacquiao is just, he would get, back in the ring, right? It's essentially a tune-up fight. It's just a high-profile sparring match. It's a glorified sparring match for Manny Pacquiao to get his feet wet. And then he says he only has two options. It's Conor McGregor and it's Errol Spence Jr. So he still wants to fight Errol Spence Jr. Now, what's interesting is if he's stripped, he's still saying he wants to fight Errol Spence Jr. and he wants to donate all the money that he earns against Conor McGregor to that of the people that are suffering from due to the pandemic and social distancing and everything going on globally. But he still wants to fight Errol Spence in another big high-profile fight. The problem with that is it loses its luster and its implications on it because you no longer have a belt. So it's just him essentially, that being Errol Spence, fighting a legend in Manny Pacquiao, but there's nothing to gain from it outside of fighting Manny Pacquiao, who is a legend, right? There's no belt on the line. There's no, ranking system. It just loses all of that credibility. It's just simply at this point a big money fight, a big pay-per-view fight, and a chance for Errol Spence to face a legend in the sport of boxing. So with that said, Manny Pacquiao is still saying after Conor McGregor he wants to face Errol Spence. Well, if Manny Pacquiao doesn't have any plans to return to the ring until July, Errol Spence just fought in December 5th to be exact. So the fact that you're talking about July, that's a long ways off. That's 6 months for Errol Spence, 6-7 months being inactive. So it just makes sense if Yordenis Ugas is stripped of the belt. Yordenis Ugas was once Errol Spence mandatory for the IBF belt as well. But Manny Pacquiao stripped of the belt. Yordenis Ugas is elevated. So now he don't have to worry about fighting for a vacant belt or Errol Spence, it just does away with all of that confusion in between. Yordenis Ugas is the WBA champion at welterweight, and Errol Spence, Yordenis Ugas, they're both with the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, with founder and advisor Al Heyman. It makes all the sense in the world to put these two together. It's a unification bout. It's a stay busy bout for Errol Spence. We know that everybody's going to call to see Errol Spence versus undefeated former 3-division world champion, former undisputed junior welterweight world champion, who is currently the WBO welterweight world champion, Terrence Bud Crawford. But also Errol Spence has a WBC mandatory in Showtime Sean Porter, who he defeated 2 fights ago. He's number 1 in the WBC rankings, but Sean Porter is pushing for his mandatory spot with the WBO. As he stated, he wants a new, fresh situation where he will have with Terrence Crawford that's motivating him. He's number 1 and the mandatory for Terrence Crawford's WBO title as well. So you get Sean Porter to face off against Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence in the unification bout with Yordenis Ugas. Then more than likely I could see at that point in time Errol Spence going into a fight with Terrence Bud Crawford for undisputed, because I would favor Terrence Crawford to beat 2-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter. But it's still going to be a very big fight, a very interesting fight. It's still in my favor, in my ideas, people would say it's a 50-50. I think it's a 60-40 fight in favor of Terrence Crawford because I think he's just more versatile, has a lot of power. But this is going to be the toughest fight and the biggest fight of his career against Sean Porter. And now you just do away with Manny Pacquiao at this point in time. It made sense for Errol Spence to fight Manny Pacquiao in a unification bout, a huge pay-per-view event, a legacy fight for Errol Spence. Should he be victorious? Obviously, I favor him to be victorious, but once again, people would say it's a 50-50 fight. And then go into a fight with Terrence Crawford for Errol Spence and his legacy. But at this point in time, if you can't land the Pacquiao fight and Pacquiao chooses to go in a different direction, well, if you're Errol Spence, in my opinion, you go ahead and you fight Yordenis Ugas as Sean Porter fights Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford, more than likely, in my opinion, will win that fight. And Errol Spence is going to beat Yordenis Ugas. I think Yordenis Ugas is not versatile, doesn't have enough power, not slick enough to deal with Errol Spence. Errol Spence wins that fight. Errol Spence is now the WBC, WBA, IBF, unified welterweight world champion. Now, the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence. Now, Terrence Crawford is coming off a big win against Sean Porter. Errol Spence is coming off of 3 Hall of Famers and then a unification bout, because Mikey Garcia, Hall of Famer, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Hall of Famers, and then the unification bout with Yordenis Ugas. He's a 3-belt holder. The biggest fight in the sport of boxing just got bigger. Now it's for undisputed. And then should Errol Spence defeat Terrence Crawford, or Terrence Crawford defeats Errol Spence, the winner of that fight fights Manny Pacquiao, gives Manny Pacquiao a last gas fight for his career to be undisputed, something he's never done in his career. And then they move on, because I believe that Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, whoever fights Manny Pacquiao is going to beat Manny Pacquiao. And then if it's Errol Spence that beats Terrence Crawford, he'll fight Manny Pacquiao, beat Manny Pacquiao, and then go on to 154. If it's Terrence Crawford, he made it clear he has no interest in going up to 154 unless it's for the right belt, for the right situation. So then at that point in time, maybe we could see Terrence Crawford face Jerron Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz Jr. You understand? So that's how I believe it should play out. And make Pacquiao on the back end after you already achieve fighting each other at that point in time, because he has no, if he doesn't have a belt at that point in time, it makes sense to just go ahead and fight Terrence Crawford. Pick up the belt from Yordenis Ugas, make the fight with Terrence Crawford undisputed, and it's still the biggest fight in the world. The winner of that fight goes on to fight Manny Pacquiao, which would be just as big as their fight. And then obviously they may have a rematch clause. So the winner of that fight fights Manny Pacquiao, then goes on and fight the rematch clause. So there's so many different scenarios as they could capitalize on this situation. But as of now, it looks like you're going to get Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas for a unification bout, as Manny Pacquiao is on the verge of being stripped. So let's see how this plays out and unfolds. That's all I got for y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, or one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.